Picture this. You wake up to complete silence. No power, no running water, no cell service. The grid is down, and this time, it's not coming back. While most preppers talk about grabbing their bug-out bags and heading for the hills, millions of people will face a different reality. They'll need to stay and defend their homes. But here's what nobody tells you about bugging in. It's not the easy, comfortable option most people think it is. It's a complete transformation that turns your suburban home into a 24/7 survival operation. The real cost isn't just money spent on supplies. It's the daily grind of managing complex systems while keeping your family alive and your sanity intact. If you want to understand what home-based survival really looks like when society breaks down for months or years, subscribe right now. We're about to explore the harsh realities that separate real preparedness from dangerous fantasy. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it takes to turn your home into a fortress that can sustain your family when everything familiar disappears. When people think about water storage, they imagine filling a few 55-gallon drums and calling it done. But let me break down the brutal math. One adult needs about 3 gallons per day just for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. That expensive drum you bought will last exactly 18 days for one person. Got a family of 4? You'll burn through 7 drums every month. And that's assuming nobody gets sick, nobody needs to wash wounds, and you're living like a monk when it comes to cleanliness. The only way bugging in works long-term is if you set up systems that keep bringing in fresh water even when the city supply dies. You need to think like a water engineer, not just someone with storage containers. You'll be hooking every downspout on your house to collection tanks with filters that dump the first dirty roof runoff before sending clean rainwater into storage. You need screens fine enough to keep mosquito larvae from turning your water supply into a disease-breeding ground. If you live in dry country, you better plan for underground storage that can hold an entire winter's worth of snowmelt. Surface storage in desert sun will cook your water and turn it into green slime faster than you can imagine. Every single day of a long-term crisis, you'll spend hours moving water, filtering water, heating water, and hauling water from collection points to storage points to where you actually use it. Water is heavy and it doesn't move itself. This endless cycle of water management becomes the foundation everything else builds on. You need gravity-fed filter systems hanging under your roof like mechanical trees. Water flows through rough filters, then ceramic filters, then carbon filters without you having to hand pump every gallon. If you're manually pumping water for a family of 4, that becomes a full-time job that leaves no energy for security, food production, or staying sane. Your water cleaning process has to be bulletproof because you're dealing with dirt, chemicals, heavy metals, parasites, viruses, and bacteria that can kill you or make you so sick you become a burden to your family's survival. You need multiple backup systems, starting with settling tubs where dirty water sits overnight so you can pour off the clear top layer, then gravity filters through ceramic units that you clean weekly and maintain religiously, then boiling or chemical treatment with bleach that you store in glass bottles because bleach breaks down in plastic, then final cleaning through carbon to make the water actually taste like water instead of a swimming pool. You need backup parts for every piece of the system because a $5 rubber ring can take your entire water operation offline just when you need it most. Everyone focuses on stacking buckets of rice and beans because they're cheap calories that store forever. But after 2 months of eating the same bland survival food, you're going to face a mental crisis that most preppers never see coming. That's before we even talk about vitamin deficiencies that start breaking down your immune system when you're living off processed grains. Real food security means building systems that produce fresh vitamins, vary flavors and textures, and keep your family's spirits high enough to function when the outside world has gone crazy. You need to think beyond static storage and start building living food production inside your home. Turn a laundry room shelf into a continuous microgreens farm where you stagger trays of broccoli, radish, and sunflower sprouts so fresh greens are coming up every 2 days. These little powerhouses deliver more nutrition per calorie than almost anything else you can grow. They thrive in minimal space with just indirect sunlight and twice daily misting with a spray bottle. Set up mushroom production in buckets with holes drilled in the sides. Layer straw and mushroom spawn, then stack them in any dim corner where they'll quietly produce 2 to 3 pounds of protein every 6 weeks. Fat becomes critical for long-term survival because your body needs concentrated calories. Render animal fat into tallow that stores 7,000 calories per quart and keeps for years when stored cool. Rotate through canned meats and pressure canned stews to keep protein intake up when hunting becomes dangerous or impossible. Food preservation without grid power becomes a daily reality. Build a wood-fired stove that can bring a pressure canner up to temperature using just a handful of sticks. This saves your precious propane for winter heating when you really need it. Build solar dehydrators from plywood, black metal sheet, and old window glass that create hot airflow for drying sliced fruits and vegetables even when outside temperatures drop to 60 degrees. Fermentation becomes your secret weapon for both preservation and nutrition. Fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, kimchi, and pickled carrots produce beneficial bacteria that support gut health, preserve vitamin C when fresh sources disappear, and create complex flavors that make repetitive survival meals actually enjoyable to eat. Plus, fermentation generates acid that naturally preserves food without requiring energy or refrigeration. You need a visible rotation system that forces you to actually use stored food before it goes bad. Mark every lid with month and year in grease pencil. Post a whiteboard that lists daily menu targets like use October 2024 pinto beans and 2 jars of venison stew. Hold monthly taste tests where you actually cook and eat older supplies to verify they're still good and edible. Food storage that never gets eaten is just expensive decoration that gives you false confidence. When the electrical grid goes down, your house instantly transforms from a comfortable living space into a heat sink during winter and an oven during summer. Unless you've woven multiple independent energy sources into a tough system that can maintain basic life support regardless of weather, fuel availability, or equipment failures. Solar panels get all the attention in prepper circles, but the real backbone of off-grid energy is storage capacity and smart power use. This means lithium iron phosphate batteries that handle deep discharge cycles without catching fire and last over 3,000 cycles when maintained properly. But only if you store them indoors above freezing and install low-temperature shutoffs that prevent damage when batteries get cold. Converting your essential appliances to 12 or 24-volt DC versions eliminates the 15% energy loss that happens every time you convert DC battery power to AC household current. Scavenge DC refrigerators, ceiling fans, and even well pump motors from RV salvage yards where they're designed to run efficiently on battery power. Wire these critical systems to a separate electrical panel so your refrigeration, communications, and lighting stay running while non-essential circuits remain dark by default. Fuel-based backup power fills the gaps when solar production drops during cloudy weather or short winter days. Dual-fuel generators that run on both gasoline and propane extend your runtime options. Connect them through a manual transfer switch and operate on a strict schedule of 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening to top off battery banks, cycle refrigeration equipment, fill pressure tanks, and charge communications devices without wasting fuel on continuous operation. Wood stoves become more than just heat sources when you attach devices to the stovepipe that convert temperature difference into 5 watts of electricity for charging handheld radios and USB devices overnight. This provides silent, fuel-free power generation as long as you're burning wood for warmth anyway. Thermal mass storage systems multiply the efficiency of any heat source by surrounding wood stoves with 30-gallon water barrels painted matty black that absorb excess heat during active burning and radiate it back into living spaces after the fire dies down. This flattens temperature swings that would otherwise force you to burn through your entire winter wood supply in a few months. Human power generation becomes practical for small electronics when you mount a 12-volt alternator to the rear hub of an old mountain bike secured in an upright trainer stand. A steady pedaling session generates 50 watt-hours of electricity, enough to charge walkie-talkies, rechargeable batteries, or a smartphone loaded with offline medical references and technical manuals. This turns exercise time into productive energy storage that doesn't depend on weather or fuel supplies. The moment you decide to bug in, you're making a strategic choice to defend a fixed position. This means you need to think like a military planner about layered defense systems that make your property look like more trouble than it's worth to potential threats. But you have to do this without turning your suburban home into an obvious fortress that screams valuable supplies stored here to every desperate person who walks by. Security starts with natural barriers that look completely innocent to casual observers but create serious obstacles for anyone trying to approach your home with bad intentions. Plant waist-high thorn bushes like black locust and firethorn under first-floor windows that bloom beautifully in spring but will shred anyone trying to climb through those windows in the dark. Replace decorative mulch pathways with crushed oyster shell that creates a bright white surface for better night vision while producing a distinctive crunching sound that announces footsteps from 50 yards away. Vehicle barriers need to stop or slow down threats without looking like military installations. Sink half-inch steel rebar at 45-degree angles flush with gravel driveways at natural choke points where friendly vehicles can straddle them safely, but any vehicle racing toward your house at speed will shred its tires and stop dead. This buys you precious time to respond to the threat. Hardening entry points means upgrading every exterior door to solid core or steel construction with 3-inch screws, anchoring strike plates directly into wall framing, plus reinforcement kits that spread impact force across the entire door frame, instead of concentrating it at weak points where doors typically fail under attack. Window security gets achieved through clear security film that looks like standard tinting, but requires multiple hammer blows to penetrate. This buys critical seconds of warning time when someone tries to smash their way into your home. Install bolts on doors that remain secure even if an attacker removes the exposed hinges from outside. Interior safe rooms provide final fallback positions when outer defenses get breached. Convert a walk-in closet or interior bathroom into a reinforced position with 3/4-inch plywood screwed to wall studs, a hidden deadbolt that locks from inside behind hanging clothes, and stored communications equipment, medical supplies, and weapons for pest control or last-ditch defense. Surveillance systems keep you informed about threats without revealing your position. Run Ethernet cable to weatherproof cameras mounted under eaves that feed video to cheap tablets hidden in your safe room. This allows you to monitor intruder movements and coordinate family responses without exposing yourself to hostile observation. Training and practice under stress conditions separates successful defenders from victims. Run regular night invasion drills with lights off and smoke alarms blaring while every family member moves to assigned positions. Time these exercises and improve based on results. Muscle memory developed during calm moments saves lives when adrenaline floods your system, and fine motor control disappears under real threat conditions. Modern medicine keeps people alive through bright lights, pressurized oxygen, sterile environments, and blood banks that most folks take completely for granted. When you're bugging in during a long-term collapse, your medical edge comes from spotting problems before they become life-threatening emergencies and building treatment capabilities that work without any outside support. Medical supply organization needs to match threat levels and response times. Everyday first aid pouches in every room for cuts and scrapes. Intermediate trauma kits in vehicles and near dangerous work areas like kitchens and workshops. Comprehensive medical supplies staged in climate-controlled locations where you can perform actual surgical procedures when professional medical care becomes unavailable or unreachable. Building a medicine stockpile requires advanced planning and relationship building with medical providers who understand preparedness concerns. Negotiate 12-month prescription refills instead of 30-day supplies. Rotate stock using clear month and year labeling systems. Vacuum seal extra medications with moisture absorbers to slow chemical breakdown when stored in temperature-changing environments. Reference materials become critical when you can't Google symptoms or call a doctor for advice. Print hard copies of medical references like Where There Is No Doctor, drug guides, and emergency surgical procedures. Download digital copies to waterproof e-readers with solar charging capability for backup access to life-saving information. Practical medical skills require hands-on practice with realistic materials. Learn stitching techniques on pig feet from the butcher, where you can practice needle angles and knot security under time pressure while wearing medical gloves. Master temporary dental fillings using zinc oxide powder mixed with clove oil for emergency tooth repair. Practice tooth extraction on foam blocks until you understand the rocking motion that loosens roots instead of just applying brute force that breaks teeth and creates worse problems. Infection control becomes absolutely critical when antibiotics run out and hospitals aren't available to treat blood poisoning. Establish strict glove discipline protocols. Maintain bleach disinfection buckets at every exterior door. Use colored duct tape to mark clean zones in green, transition areas in yellow, and contaminated spaces in red so you never accidentally bring germs into living areas where healthy family members sleep and eat. Sanitation systems need to handle human waste without creating disease vectors or odor problems that attract unwanted attention. Build 2-bucket composting toilets with separators that divide liquid and solid waste for easier processing. Sprinkle sawdust or carbon material after each use to control odors and speed decomposition. When solids containers fill up, cap them with dates and place them in discrete outdoor solar containers, wrapped in black plastic where 6 months of heat kills germs, before you bury the composted results in garden trenches beneath nitrogen-hungry plants like corn that benefit from the fertilizer value. Garbage management becomes a life-or-death issue when city services stop running because accumulated waste attracts rats, and rats bring fleas, and fleas carry diseases that can wipe out your family faster than bullets or starvation. You need systematic waste processing that eliminates every possible disease vector while recycling materials back into useful resources, rather than just creating disposal problems. Greywater recycling systems route kitchen and bathroom drain water through simple grease traps before sending it into underground fields that water fruit trees. You need to use phosphate-free soaps that won't kill the beneficial soil microbes that break down organic matter and prevent groundwater contamination. This turns wastewater into irrigation that supports food production instead of creating environmental hazards. Organic waste processing starts with stripping every bit of usable meat from bones, then cooking those bones into nutritious broth that gets pressure canned for long-term protein storage. After you've extracted every calorie of nutrition, the remaining bone material gets buried in 3-foot trenches, layered with wood ash where calcium and phosphorus slowly return to the soil without creating scattered debris that attracts scavengers to your property. Metal and glass materials get cleaned, sorted, and stockpiled in designated storage areas because aluminum cans become bullet backstops and fire reflectors. Glass jars turn into storage containers and candle molds. And scrap metal provides raw materials for repairs when you can't just drive to the hardware store for replacement parts. Burnable waste requires careful selection because you can safely burn plain paper and untreated wood in controlled fires. But plastic releases toxic fumes that can poison your family and signal your location to hostiles from miles away. Non-burnable plastics get compacted into dense blocks stuffed tightly into old feed bags that become insulating building blocks for greenhouse construction or emergency furniture when traditional materials become unavailable. Ash management from wood fires provides valuable resources when handled properly, because wood ash contains potassium and other minerals that improve soil fertility. But it also creates alkaline conditions that can kill plants if used incorrectly. Mix ash with compost materials, and age the mixture for several months before applying it to garden areas where pH buffering prevents plant damage while delivering essential nutrients for food production. The physical challenges of bugging in will test your body, but the psychological pressure of long-term isolation and constant threat awareness will break your mind if you don't build deliberate mental health systems that maintain family unity and individual sanity when the outside world descends into chaos and uncertainty. Daily routine structure provides psychological anchors that create predictability and purpose in an unpredictable world. Start every day with family meetings that quickly check water levels, battery charge status, security perimeter, and most importantly, everyone's emotional state and mental health needs. Follow with rotating duty assignments that give each person cooking, maintenance, security, and rest responsibilities that break monotony while spreading essential skills across the entire family unit. Quiet space designation becomes critical for mental decompression when you're living in close quarters, under constant stress. Convert a spare bedroom or corner into a no-crisis zone, stocked with art supplies, board games, musical instruments, and reading materials, where operational discussions are banned and family members can decompress from the relentless pressure of survival, logistics, and security concerns. Information discipline prevents psychological overwhelm from rumors and fear-mongering that spreads faster than facts during crisis situations. Establish scheduled 15-minute intelligence briefings using ham radio contacts to gather verified information from multiple sources, followed by complete radio silence until the next scheduled check-in. Constant static and unfiltered emergency chatter breeds anxiety and paranoia that destroys decision-making ability when clear thinking becomes most critical. Celebration and milestone recognition maintains hope and marks progress when external time references disappear and days blend together into monotonous survival routines. Track lunar cycles, seasonal changes, and family birthdays with deliberate ceremonies that use precious resources like flour for birthday cupcakes. Ritual celebrations feed psychological needs that are just as important as physical nutrition for long-term survival and family stability. Conflict resolution skills become essential when personality friction escalates under stress conditions, and family members can't just leave when arguments develop. Establish clear protocols for handling disagreements, rotating leadership responsibilities, and providing private space for cooling down when tensions rise. Family unity under pressure often determines survival success more than individual preparedness skills or supply stockpiles. Converting a typical suburban home into a comprehensive survival operation requires solving complex three-dimensional puzzles because most houses overflow with unnecessary stuff even before you start adding months or years' worth of survival supplies. You need systematic approaches to storage that maximize limited square footage while maintaining access to critical items when seconds count during emergency situations. Vertical storage solutions become essential when floor space disappears under supply accumulation. Bolt industrial shelving systems in garages and basements. Suspend bicycles and tools from ceiling joists using pulley systems. Slide thin water storage containers into wall cavities between studs where they stay hidden but accessible. This turns every cubic inch of available space into functional storage without creating obvious external signs that advertise your preparedness level to potential threats. Underground and subfloor storage takes advantage of thermal mass and hidden capacity in raised foundation construction, where you can hang ventilated produce storage cages beneath the house where temperatures stay 10 to 15 degrees cooler than interior spaces. This creates natural root cellars that extend the storage life of potatoes, onions, and other vegetables without requiring electricity or active climate control systems. Furniture modification creates hidden storage capacity that maintains normal appearance while providing security for valuable supplies. Build coffee tables from rifle cases topped with decorative wood planks. Convert window seats into hinged grain storage bins. Modify bookcases with hidden compartments behind false backs where you can store precious metals, important documents, and emergency cash that remain invisible to casual observation, but accessible when needed. Low-profile acquisition strategies prevent drawing unwanted attention during supply accumulation phases by spreading purchases across multiple stores, paying cash for transactions, wearing work clothes that make you look like a contractor buying supplies for job sites rather than a prepper stockpiling for emergencies, and limiting individual purchase quantities to amounts that seem normal for household consumption rather than obvious stockpiling behavior. Inventory management systems prevent waste and ensure rotation of time-sensitive supplies through clear labeling systems, regular audits, and first-in, first-out consumption protocols that force older supplies into regular meal rotation before they exceed safe storage life. Expired food storage represents wasted money and false security that could prove fatal when those supplies fail to provide expected nutrition during actual emergencies. Physical supplies break down over time and can be lost or stolen, but skills compound and improve with practice, creating permanent capabilities that nobody can take away from you. This makes knowledge acquisition and skill development the most important long-term investment you can make in family survival capabilities and community resilience. Personal skill records document current capabilities and identify training gaps that need attention. Maintain detailed records of every family member's abilities, current skill levels in critical areas, and specific training plans for improving weak areas. Systematic skill development produces better results than random learning and ensures that essential capabilities don't depend on single individuals who might become injured or unavailable when those skills become critically needed. Monthly skill targets create steady progress toward comprehensive capabilities by requiring each person to learn or refresh at least one practical skill every month. Whether that's lock repair, gardening under adverse conditions, basic medical procedures, equipment maintenance, or memorizing local geography for navigation without GPS. Small, consistent improvements compound into major capabilities over time while maintaining engagement and preventing skill decay. Quarterly stress testing reveals skill gaps and equipment weaknesses by deliberately creating challenging scenarios, like shutting off main power for 48 hours, locking away normal tools, and identifying which repair tasks stall without standard resources. Use those gaps to drive focused learning goals for the next quarter's training emphasis. Practice under artificial stress reveals real weaknesses before actual emergencies expose them at the worst possible moment. Knowledge trading with neighbors builds mutual aid relationships while expanding everyone's skill base through informal exchanges where teaching butchering techniques earns welding lessons, plumbing repairs earn honey from local beekeepers, and electrical work gets traded for mechanical expertise. This creates redundant knowledge networks that strengthen entire communities rather than just individual families. Documentation and reference systems preserve critical information in formats that remain accessible when internet resources disappear. Print hard copies of essential technical manuals, create laminated quick reference cards for emergency procedures, record instructional videos for complex processes, maintain backup copies of critical information on multiple devices and storage formats. Knowledge without access becomes useless exactly when you need it most. The ability to teach others ensures that essential skills spread throughout your community rather than dying with individual experts. Bugging in represents one of the most strategically sound survival approaches available to modern families, but only when you understand that true home-based preparedness operates as a comprehensive life support system rather than simple supply storage. It's a deliberate choice that transforms your familiar living space into a resilient stronghold, capable of sustaining your family through extended crises while maintaining the psychological advantages of familiar territory, established resources, and defensive positions you've had time to properly prepare and fortify. Every system we've discussed today demands daily maintenance and continuous improvement because dynamic preparedness adapts to changing conditions rather than relying on static solutions that fail when unexpected challenges emerge. The difference between families that thrive during extended emergencies and those that barely survive comes down to treating home defense as an integrated organism that requires constant attention rather than a one-time project you complete and forget about. Most people who believe they're prepared for shelter-in-place scenarios have never stress-tested their water systems, never lived without municipal services for extended periods, never managed complete waste cycles without city pickup, and never maintained family cohesion during weeks of isolation under pressure. Their confidence rests on theoretical knowledge that could prove inadequate when real emergencies demand practical problem-solving skills under stress. The strategic advantage of bugging in lies in your ability to prepare extensively in advance, establish redundant systems, build relationships with local allies, and create defensive positions that mobile survival simply cannot match. Start implementing these systems now while resources remain available, and you have time for testing and refinement. The learning curve demands patience, but mistakes during peaceful practice become valuable lessons, while mistakes during actual crises can prove catastrophic. Subscribe to this channel because we're continuing to explore the strategic realities of home-based survival that separate professional-level preparedness from amateur wishful thinking. Share this content with serious preppers who understand that building resilient communities starts with honest discussions about what comprehensive preparedness actually requires when society support systems fail and family security depends on individual capability and strategic thinking.